Okay, today we're going to be doing Siman Shil Chav Zayin. I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but we'll do. Let's read Halach. Hamafresh Challah Kemach Ein Challah. The Siman is about when you should be mafresh challah, and it says if you're mafresh challah when it's still flour, before you mix the flour and water together, it's nothing. The Gez will be a kohen. The kohen who has it has stolen property. V'shara isa cheres b'challah, and what you left behind is also chayiv in challah. V'oisa kemach shevish l'm challah. Miesh ba'omer v'so isa has a mafresh min challah. Okay, so what you gave is not challah. What you left behind is still tevel. Everything that's only Hafrashas challah and a bunch of variations of that same thing. Okay, in other words, don't be mafresh challah when it's flour. V'davka, but that is only true. That's assuming the person said, I'm being mafresh challah now, and it should be Hafrashah now. If he says, I'm being mafresh right now, but I want that it's going to be challah in an hour from now when it eventually turns into dough, then he's allowed to do that. Okay, so you're not allowed to be mafresh challah when it's flour, but you can if you do it correctly, if you say it's going to be challah when it's the right time to be challah. Okay, so in the next din, which I'm not going to read to you, the next din says that the right time to do it is when you mix the flour and water together. That's when you're supposed to do it. Okay, and what I'm just going to tell you for the future is this is talking about a regular normal dough, what we call blil ava, like when you make bread or cake or rolls out of it. In Shin Chav Ches, we're going to talk about Shin Chav Tes, we're going to talk about whether the same din applies for blil raka, a more watery batter that you make like for cakes, like for like a sponge cake kind of a batter. Whether that also has the same din that when you mix the flour and water, that's when it's chayiv and challah. Okay, the assumption here, this is the sin that tells you when you mafresh challah. It doesn't say anything here that do any other time except for when you mix the flour and water together. Or when you bake it, when you knead it, etc. But we'll see in Shin Chav Tes it might be a little different for blue raka. Okay, one more thing I'm going to tell you that we're not talking about is that we're going to talk about today making Hafrashas at the wrong time, making Hafrashas before it's really ready for Hafrashas challah, which is what this halakha is about. In the next segment, in Shin Chav Ches, we're going to talk about not doing the Hafrashah, but being the mana a shliach, appointing someone else to do a Hafrashah when you're not yet able to do it. Okay, they're very interrelated. Whether I can do it or whether the shliach can do it is very interrelated. We're going to say the shliach for Shin Chav Ches. Okay. So the din was you can't be mafresh challah when it's flour, but yet you could say when it will become. When the right time will be challah, it can work. The reason why that's true, it comes from a Taisus. Rabbein Tam says in Nazir, he says that it's because it's biyadeh. The person who's be mafresh challah right now he doesn't have anything that's tevel, but he could go out into the street and get other tevel. Okay, he could go out to the street and take a piece of tevel from someplace else. Somebody's got tevel. He could take that tevel and use that tevel to do the Hafrashah, and therefore, even though the flour he's using for the Hafrashah right now is not tevel, because it wasn't mixed with water yet, even though it's considered biyadeh, he could do the Hafrashah. We do the same kind of a thing when we do Hafrashas challah. We can talk a number of times today about in the tevel system, which is to say there's a tevel dough or tevel matzah sitting in a company, and we say we say. At 8 o'clock in the morning, at 6 o'clock, when everyone wakes up, he gets up and he says, a piece of that tevel that's over there should be, every time they make a batter later on today, I want it to be Hafrashah. He's saying it for the future. What he's saying it on is not yet made. What he's making the Hafrashah on is still flour. But he's saying anything between now and the next time I say this, I want to make a Hafrashah from that piece. So he's saying it on the stuff that's not yet made. Okay? So just as a sort of an aside, is that Rosh was a little, was uncomfortable with this. He says, because this din that the Mechaber says that you could do the Hafrashah because it's biyadeh. He says, I don't understand. He said, that din, Taisa says, is going to a shita in the Gemara, Rabbi ben Yaakov, okay? And Rabbi ben Yaakov is in Kedushin, who talks about, if a person wants to be mafresh truma, from payers that are attached to the ground, or payers that are not attached to the ground. So there's a machlokes say whether you could be mafresh, if and when you could be mafresh. Rabbi ben Yaakov says yes, you could. You could say when these payers grow to their full size, and someone pulls them off the ground, then the hafrashah will be chal. And that's what our din is based on. That since it's biyadeh, you could do the hafrashah later on. So he says it's true. Rabbi ben Yaakov says that. That's what Tosfos says. It's based on that shita. He says, but most Rishonim don't pass on Rabbi ben Yaakov. Okay, it's a whole to do. It's a whole to do about how do you know who you pass like. But we don't. Most Rishonim, the Shulchan Aruch, the Rambam, Ramban, most of the Rishonim do not paskin like that shita. So he says, so how could we make a whole Hafrashah based on that shita? He says, the Mechaber Shulchan Aruch over here says like that. He says, but he's a little uncomfortable. You should.
Shulchan Aruch holds it there or not? Because he's saying he's
Good question. Good question. Over there in Shilmam Nalv, in Hafrashas Truma, he says, not good Bazim Yaakov. So he says, over here he's saying like that, but what's the thing? So Rabbi Shachta was uncomfortable. He says, even though over here, in Shin Chav Zayin, Shulchan was saying to do it, he wasn't so happy about doing it. Lamaisa, I'm not really sure what the question, I didn't say the question. There's two ways to get around it, or to avoid the question. And one is, the Gra in Ardin starts off just like Rabbi Shachta. He says, most Rishonim don't pass like Bazim Yaakov. That's what the Gra starts off. You should know, most Rishonim don't pass like this. But he says, but he doesn't understand. He says, I don't understand what Taisa says. It's not really true only according to Bazim Yaakov. He has a chesed why it's true even according to the Rabbi Yochanan, who's the chesed of Bazim Yaakov. So the din that's over here, which would answer. Am I making a mistake with that? Maybe I make a mistake. That doesn't sound right. Okay, somebody, whoever it is, who's chesed of Bazim Yaakov, he says really he says the din is true even according to that, which answers the question of how can the Mechaber say here this din and then Shilmam Nalv say not good Bazim Yaakov. Okay, I don't know if he points it out, but that answers that question. So one thing is that even though this din comes from a Tosfos, and Tosfos says only to a Bazim Yaakov, the Gra says I don't see why it's true. Shouldn't it be true even not a that? And the second thing is that if you're paying attention, the whole machlokes in the Gemara Kedushin is by a person who says when the peiros that are not yet grown will eventually grow. So it's not even right to do the Hafrashah now, which is the case in Shulchan Aruch. I'm taking flour that's not yet tevel. Our case is not like that. The way we do Hafrashas Challah, we do it from something that's already tevel. We take something that's already the dough or the matzah are already tevel that we're making Hafrashah from, and the Gemara says beferish in Kedushin that everyone's minded that if it's already roi for Hafrashah now, everyone agrees that you're allowed to do it. The whole machlokes there is when the thing is not even grown yet. You take something that's not yet grown, you say, when it will grow, and I'll take it off the ground, that's what the machlokes is about. Okay, so
it's just in the whole city, the silent...
Very good. Read to my next question. Okay, read to my next point. Okay, and that is, we will have a question, which is, we say, we're taking the tevel, dough, or matzah that we have, and we're doing Hafrashah. Every time a dough is going to be made, the rest of the day I'm going to do a Hafrashah. So the question is...
But that's different. That's different from what the Shulchan Aruch's talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm putting. Yeah, it's different.
The Shulchan Aruch's talking about we're still Kemach, and you're saying...
The Shulchan Aruch's talking about Kemach on Kemach.
Right.
So I'm saying it's not really totally on this thing, because we're not doing Kemach on Kemach, we're doing tevel on Kemach.
What you're doing is different from what the Shulchan Aruch
is
describing, yes.
Right, so Rabbi Shach says, how could we be samech on what the Mechaber says, which only going to one shita? I'm saying to you, well, we're not really exactly doing what the Mechaber said. We're doing a Hafrashah for the future, which the Mechaber talked about that.
Number one, what the Mechaber says might be going according to all the shitas. Number two, even if you don't say like that, what we're doing is not what the Mechaber says.
Right, we're doing better than the Mechaber. We're doing what the Gemara Kedushin says. Everyone agrees you're allowed to do that. We're doing Hafrashah using existing tevel, so therefore you're allowed to do it. Okay. So, but there's another question, and that is that when the person says that this nusach in the morning, he says makes this declaration. Every dough that they make, blah blah blah, is going to be. He says, well, what happens if the company buys flour after he did that? Okay, in other words, he said in the morning, I'm making a hafrashah everything that they make, and later in the day they buy other things. So now there's a different question. It's a variation on the question of it not being tevel, which is the other question is that's davar shel olam. Okay, he's doing hafrashah for representing the owner for something that's potentially level olam. So without getting into all the gory details, there's a machlokes. The big machlokes in Choshen Mishpat, whether such a din is something is considered davar shel olam, and the machlokes is if a person, it's like this: if I promise to sell you something, and I don't have it myself. I make a kinyan and I'm going to sell you something, and I don't have it yet. Okay, but the thing is available in the shuk. Okay, it's available. You could buy it like flour. You could buy flour. It's available on the market. There's a set price. It's easy, and the guy even has it. It's on its way over on the truck. So it's a machlokes in Choshen Mishpat whether that's considered davar shel olam or lo ba'olam. The din of Shulchan Aruch is you're mechuyev to get the thing and give it to the person. And the machlokes there in the achronim there is does the mechaber mean you're mechuyev because it was a real kinyan? Because it's considered bala olam, and you made a kinyan, and you're mechuyev to give it to the guy, or is it just like a mishapara? I mean, they didn't say it's a mishapara. Or is it just like a chumrah on the person? You're responsible. You have a responsibility because you said you would do it, but it's not the essence that the kinyan was how. Okay, so on the possibility that if we say that that's considered davar shel b'olam, so then how can we say in the morning, I'm doing Hafrashah on this stuff, we took care, my stuff is tevel, but the other stuff doesn't even exist yet. And from the perspective of the owner of the factory, that stuff doesn't exist yet. So it's now we're talking about not from the tevel side, we're talking about from the flour side. The flour doesn't exist yet. So now, okay, there are many of the Achronim who think that's not a question. They think that's considered Baal. But according to those, it's one understanding in the Shach. It's a Shibud. So Rabbi Shachta said, because of that, this bothered him. So he says he thinks that what they should say is, they say, I'll be mafresh challah for everything that we made today, the way they say it is. He says, and I'll be mafresh challah on everything that was made in the past for which my Hafrashah wasn't challah. Which is to say, so if you say that? Okay, good. I didn't know that. Okay, so that means is well, we're going to say more reasons in a minute. You'll see. So that means is that if they bought yesterday, they got a delivery of flour. After, again, the shaila is if they get a delivery of flour after I said the nusach, before I say it again. They have to use that flour right away. If they don't use the flour until tomorrow, it makes no difference. So the shaila is if they get, let's say for example, on a Friday they get the person says the nusach, and he doesn't say it again until Monday, okay, or he goes on vacation, or it's Yom Tov, whatever, he doesn't say it for a couple of days. He doesn't say it for a couple of days. So over those couple of days, the delivery could come in, and it already could go into production very quickly, okay? So Rabbi Shach says they should say it's for the past. They should say is, I'll be marfish for whatever's going to be, and for anything that I did, that the Hafrashah wasn't chal for one reason or another, I want the Hafrashah to be chal in the past, in backwards also, in which case he'll have covered himself in case his Hafrashah from the one day didn't catch the flour, okay?
Now we're going to person ate whatever it was, so.
It does work because the din is in Chalas Chutzars. You can be marfish later as long as some of the product is still around. So if they made 1,000 cookies out of it, some people ate it were okay as long as some of those cookies are still around. So from each batter. So if you're in a house, you might eat them all up. But if you're in a commercial bakery, a few weeks before, he's going to say it again the next day. He says it the next day or 2 days later. I mean, how many days is he going to go without it? You know what I mean? Even as sick as he is.
Flour in that day, they made the thing and I got all eaten up already.
No, so it happens over Yom Tov or 3-day Yom Tov,
You have like on Shabbos, you just study one mafish Shabbos, so the halacha is.
Right, so we talked about it. But as long as it's somewhere, so in a house, you might eat it all up. But in a commercial bakery, what did you say? How much of those pitas is still left over? You know what I mean? It stays around for a while, you know what I'm saying? So now, Rabbi Shachta now moved this to another step, which is like this. He said this possibility that there might be new flour in the bakery. I spoke about until now that there might be new flour in the bakery, meaning the flour might come in and be used between one time I said the nusach and the next time. I say it on Wednesday and I say it again on Thursday, and in between they got a delivery and started to use it. But the same problem comes up in a different way. They obviously get new flour every so often. Every so often new flour comes in. So Rabbi Shachta said that's the reason why the person who says, I'm being marfish challah, I'm doing this whole Hafrashah, but it should end the next time I say this. Okay? It goes from now, every time you make a batter, from now till the next time I say this, the Hafrashah should run. He says, why do they do that? Well, why do they say it should end? Why don't they just say, it should keep on going, there should always be Hafrashah. He could say it every day, but why did they put an end to it? And the other half of the same question is, well, because you put an end to it, therefore they make a new bracha. Because it ends. If I say it at 8 o'clock today and I say it at 8 o'clock tomorrow, I could say it 8 tomorrow because it ended. My yesterday's thing ended because now I'm starting it again. Well, why do I do that? Why do I keep making brachas on this thing? Why don't I say it should keep on going forever and then not make brachas? Why am I
You're going to run out of tevel.
What'd you say?
You're going to run out of tevel.
No. When it runs out, when you start again, get a new batch of tevel, you start it again. But let's say this for 6 months. So every 6 months when he starts again, he'll make a new bracha. But every day when he says it, why does he say it should be chal today until I say this again, and then tomorrow when he says it again, he's going to make the bracha? Why is he doing that? Why doesn't he let it keep on going there and not make the bracha? Why is he bringing an end to what he's doing, which forces him to make a bracha? You would think the opposite. He should not bring an end to it and not make brachas. Why does he make extra brachas for? What would be the point? So
why does he say it every day? Just say it once.
So saying every day, you're saying it every day because they might get it in flour. So there's a reason to keep saying it every day. We could get why you say it, I'm making a new Hafrashah, but why do you say, and it should end at a certain time? So Rabbi Shachta said, the questions answer each other, and that is, because there's a possibility that the company gets a new flour I have to keep making new Hafrashas. But because I never know when to get new flour, I'm never going to be able to make a bracha. Okay, I will never know when I really need a new Hafrashah, or when am I just being cautious and saying I'm making a new Hafrashah. So, because of that, essentially, the person will never make a bracha. So Rav Shechter says, well, a person is not allowed to put themselves into a situation where they will do a mitzvah without making a bracha. Okay, he had a riot from a Taz in Slichas in Rosh Hashanah, in Rosh Hashanah. He says Slichas before it's daylight. So when when the Chazan puts on the talis, it's a machlokas rishonim whether he's mechuyev to make a bracha on that talis or not. Okay, machlokas whether the Kashrus yon that you wear at night you mechuyev to make a bracha on it. So the Taz says what he gives an eitzah what he should do so that when it comes later in the day he'll be able to make a bracha on his talis, because otherwise he'll be doing the mitzvah without making a bracha. He said you try to do the mitzvah. You're supposed to do the mitzvah with a bracha. So therefore you should. Over there in Hilchos Rosh Hashanah says what you should do to make sure you be able to make a bracha. So here too, Rosh Hashanah says the need to do the mitzvah with the bracha is what gives me the right to end my Hafrashah from today. So today I say the Hafrashah goes till the next time, so that next time I'll be able to make the bracha again because it'll have ended. Okay, so my need, it's not that you should avoid making the bracha. It's because I want to do the mitzvah with a bracha, and I'll never know when I can do it again. I'm going to go forever, basically, without making the bracha. Another 6 months I can make the bracha. So I do something now to make it that tomorrow when I do the mitzvah, I can do it with a bracha. Okay?
In the sukkah before, Shabbos,
early. Okay.
You can make a bracha, you need the sukkah.
Good. Okay, good. Listen, I didn't get that. Rabbi Shach say it. Right. Okay, but over here, in this case, the guy does the mitzvah. He gives the whole eitzah as how you should read your talis, and not okay. Now, however, that brings us to a bigger question. Okay, this is a question Shlomo Miller asked. Okay, he says he doesn't like the tevel system. Okay? We've heard him a few times already. He doesn't like the tevel system, and he said the Shulchan says you're not allowed to do pidyon ben on Shabbos. Okay, you're not allowed to do pidyon ben on Shabbos. So the question is, if the child is supposed to have pidyon ben on Shabbos, could you give the kohen the silver on Erev Shabbos, and then you'll say it'll be chal on Shabbos. Okay, so the Magen Avraham brings it's a Trumas edition. Magen Avraham brings that you shouldn't do that, because if you're going to do that, you won't make a bracha, because at the time you're giving the silver, you can't say v'tzivanu. Okay, it's before the time that you're not chayav doing the mitzvah at that point. It's not the right age yet. And on Shabbos you won't do it because you're not doing anything. So in the Mela you'll lose out on saying the bracha. And the Mela the Trumas edition says you should not give the kohen the money on Friday. That should be Chal Shabbos. Even though Shabbos is the right day to do the mitzvah, and you'd want to do the mitzvah on time, but since you're going to lose out on the bracha, you shouldn't do it. So Shlomo Miller says you see two things from this thing. First of all is, if I do the action of the mitzvah at the time when the mitzvah is not, I can't do the mitzvah yet, I don't make a bracha. He says, so, when the person says, I am being mafresh challah for every batter that's going to be made the rest of the day today, that batter that I'm doing the Hafrashah on, it's not chayim challah yet. It's still flour. It's not mixed with water yet. He says, so when I do that Hafrashah, he says, you can't make a bracha. So why do we tell people, in the nusach, in the official nusach, I know a lot of people don't do it, but in the official nusach it says, you should make a bracha. He says, why do you make a bracha? When you're saying this wording, the stuff that's not chayv and challah, the stuff that you're being mafresh on, it's like the kid who is not ready for pidyon ben yet. The person who's making Hafrashah now is saying, when that stuff becomes chayv and challah, then I want the Hafrashah to happen. Okay, it's not chayv and challah now. So Magen Avraham says, it's not chayv and challah now, so you don't make the bracha now. He says, so why do you tell people to make the bracha? And the second half of the same question is, and since I'm telling you shouldn't make the bracha, since I just told you not to make the bracha, who gives you a right to do a mitzvah in a way that makes it that you're not going to make the bracha? Okay, the same thing we said before. You don't do mitzvahs in ways that avoid the bracha. He says, so first of all, he says it's wrong that you make the bracha, and the mela, since it's wrong that you make the bracha, and you should not make the bracha, then this whole system is bad, because the whole system that sets you up to do a mitzvah that make the bracha, it's incorrect to do it there. Okay, now I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know the answer to this question of why do we tell people to make a bracha. It's a good point. Here the Magen Avraham says when you're setting in motion something that the mitzvah will happen later, and now the mitzvah is not right to be chal, you can't make the bracha. So I don't know what the answer to that question. It sounds like a good question to me. The second half I get. The second half I understand, which is if we had a choice the question is, why would we set ourselves up to do a mitzvah without the bracha? So the answer to that question is, what's the other choice? If we say, we can't do this, basically we can't give you hashgacha. Basically that means is you, the owner, will never be mafresh challah. So we have a choice. Should we be mafresh challah without a bracha, or should we never be mafresh challah? So the chayra, we're better off being mafresh challah without a bracha than never be mafresh challah. If you have a choice of picking a bench, should you do it on Shabbos or on Sunday? Okay, push it to Sunday, which is not so great, but it's better than at least you do with the mitzvah. But over here, what's the other choice? The other choice is the guy's going to walk away and say, okay, I can't be mafresh challah. And he won't be mafresh challah. So isn't it better to do the Hafrashah challah without a bracha than doing it not at all? The horror, that would seem to be that's worthwhile from that side. Okay? But you should just know, back to what Rabbi Shachta said beforehand, if we would always say that we're doing the Hafrashah, we would never say the Hafrashah for the future, only for the past, then we can make a bracha. Because then this shiloh that you can't make a bracha on when the mitzvah is not roy yet, you can always do that. So imagine if we do this. Instead of saying Hafrashah for the future, every morning we get up and say, all the doughs that were made yesterday, I'll be mafresh challah for yesterday. Okay? It sounds a little odd, right? Could you imagine? We set up a system to always do a Hafrashah in the past. But then we can make a bracha. Okay, so this first question, which is you're now going to make the bracha, you can't say v'tzivanu when it's not chayiv in the mitzvah yet, we can do it. They only say
the mashgiach comes every day,
yeah,
and separate a shtickle dough from every. Right?
That's not for the past. Then he's doing Hafrashah for real. He said, we pulled off a piece of dough, instead of doing a minute later, we did an hour later, 6 hours later, we did the Hafrashah. But here you'd be saying is, every day I'm being mafresh on the stuff that's already on the trucks, it's out, that's we set up a whole system to do it. It seems like a little funny to do that, but it would solve this problem. We would now have, you'd always be appropriate to make the bracha, because the stuff that was made yesterday definitely is chayiv in it. So we started off saying, the official wording of the nusach is you make a bracha and you say it for the future. Rabbi Shachta said, no, don't just say it for the future, say it for the future and for the past. Now saying, maybe you're better off saying only for the past. Okay, a little odd, right? We're sort of like going all the way to the extreme, right? We started off saying only for the future and make a bracha. Rabbi Shachta said, no, you got to say it for the past also. Rabbi Shlomo said, no, wait a second. You can't make a bracha if it's for the future. So it's so what you should say only for the past. Okay, it's starting to sound a little odd.
You should say till tomorrow, except for the last batter.
So I can make a bracha. Save myself a bracha. Save one for the bracha. Right. Okay. You poor Tommy. It's 4 o'clock in the morning.
Anyways, since I take from that dough, I'm going to make a thing on that. Anyways, I have to say except for the dough.
Except for one.
Except for the one I'm separated from.
Right. Okay.
No, I used to do it. I absolutely.
Okay. And that leads us to our third and last issue related to this which is this morning. I assume David got up this morning and said his thing. And he says it's going to be chal until the next time. Let's say even he's a big tzaddik, and on Sunday he's going to say it also. Okay, he's going to work on Sunday, and on Sunday morning he's going to say his wording again. Okay, but Lamaisa, what he said this morning's got to work for Shabbos. Okay, is that okay? Is it okay that he's saying is if the bakery's open on Shabbos, they're going to make come Shabbos morning they're going to make dough and they're going to make bread. Is it okay that he's saying, I want to be mafresh challah on Shabbos? That's basically what he's doing. He's being mafresh challah. He's saying, every time they make a dough, meaning Shabbos morning, I want a little piece of this to become challah. Is that okay that David says that, or that anybody says that? That they say is, I want Hafrashah to happen on Challah. You're not going to be mafresh challah on Shabbos.
Is it right?
That's why it's connected. I just dreams that no place. That's why the connection. So we would say is that the Magen Avraham sounds like you're allowed to do that. The Magen Avraham says the only reason why you can't give the opinion at Ben beforehand, the only reason why you can't give the opinion at Ben on Friday to the cut, give him the silver on Friday to be chal on Shabbos, is because you lose the bracha. Other than that, it would be perfectly okay. It would work. You would be allowed to do Hafrashah. Why? You're not going to make a opinion at Ben on Shabbos. So how are you allowed to do that? So you see from there that you're allowed to set something in motion that will happen on Shabbos also. That's okay. You could set that in motion if you want to do that. Okay. So it's like that. Okay, you'd say like that. Like it's been shulchan but other cases. So guess what? We're not the first person to make that deed. It's Rabbi Kveiger. Rabbi Kveiger says this. It's well known. Rabbi Kveiger. Just give me a second. Well known. Rabbi Kveiger says that. It makes exactly this deed. He says you see from there that there's nothing wrong with doing an action on Friday that makes a kinyan bichal on Shabbos. Okay. No, it's in Kuf Nun Test. Okay. That's all. What? No, it's said like that. It's Archaim. No, it's I don't know if it's Archaim. What?
That's the conclusion? That's what you exist?
No, I didn't finish it. Don't leave yet. Don't fall asleep. Yes, don't fall asleep now. I didn't. No. So just for your curiosity to understand it, Abner Nezer says why it's different than all the other dinim. Why is it that you're allowed to do Ishim Shemchitzi? You're allowed to have something else Malach happen on Shabbos, but you're not allowed to do this. So Abner Nezer, just for your understanding, says there's a difference between kinyanim and other things, and that is that when I make a kinyan, he says, if a person makes a kinyan, what would happen if he says the kinyan should be chal in an hour from now? Okay? And then the person who made the kinyan dropped dead. Okay? He died before the time that the kinyan was going to be chal. The kinyan won't be chal. Because the kinyan needs two participants. So I set it in motion that it's going to happen in an hour from now, but if I'm not here, if the person's not here anymore, there's going to be no kinyan. So he says, so it turns out that when I set a kinyan in motion to happen on Shabbos, the malacha is not happening by itself. I'm really participating in the malacha. Now, I'm sleeping, but I'm participating in the malacha because the kinyanim need the person to be involved, and that's why the kinyan is worse than making any other malacha, that you're allowed to set malachas in motion that happen on Shabbos, because they don't need me. If a person, I don't know, he set something up to cook.
So which is the malacha? The mafresh or the balarisa?
Same person.
No, it's not nowadays.
Okay. In a regular person, what's it? Okay.
He's in Machal Shabbos big time, right? I'm not saying that.
So we should set him up and say, you did so many, so another one's not going to hurt you, you know?
And the other choice is he's going to be give people to eat. Oh,
yeah, we're going to do it, John. Okay, now, so the problem is, okay, so that's the husband. Okay, so I said to you, so it seems like if we read this Magen Avraham, we read Rikki we'd say, okay, so it's nothing wrong with doing Hafrashah. The only problem is, that's what Rikki says at the beginning of the tshuva, okay? But then the whole rest of the tshuva goes on to say that it's not true. You're not allowed to make a kinyan that works for that event that is chal on Shabbos. His main rayas have to do with the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur.
It's not a kinyan. It's a different,
which is? Okay, so I'm not sure if you're right. We're going to talk about that in a second. But wait. The way the Abner Nezer explained it, it should be the same. I'm not saying it's correct. I'm going to tell you in a second why I'm not sure it's correct. The way Abner Nezer said that it needs a person. If a person set in motion to the Hafrashas Challah and then he wasn't around, it wouldn't work either. It needs the person. If we think about the logic of it, it's the same as a king. Okay? But you're right. I don't know why, but you're right. Okay. So now the Rikki ends up that a person is not allowed to set in motion a kinyan that will happen on Shabbos. His rayas, as I was saying, come from. Excuse me. His rayas come from. Gemara's about a Kohen Gadol, what he does to make sure he has a wife for Yom Kippur. The Gemara has all kinds of ideas of how he has to do it to make the kinyan bichal. If his first wife dies, he's going to have the second wife. All kinds of things, and there's a very intricate rise that I did not follow. Right. All about how the Kohen Gadol makes the kinyan. Right. All kinds of things going on. Okay, so now I turn the tables back on you. If the conclusion is that you're not allowed to make a kinyan bichal, does that mean that you're not allowed to be mafresh chal in a way that will be chal on Shabbos also? Okay? Now, another aside. Okay, so Rabbi Kager, if you look at the tshuva, he doesn't come back to the Magen Avraham. He starts with the Magen Avraham. He says, there's a right from the Magen Avraham that you're allowed to do it, and then it goes on for about a page and a half explaining why it's not true, but he never comes back to explain why it's not true. Okay? So the tshuva Rav Moshe about it. Rav Moshe has the tshuva about it. He says, Rabbi Kager forgot to answer the question. So Rav Moshe says, now, it's funny. Rav Moshe then goes on for like a page or two, and he says, in short, he says, it was so obvious why the Magen Avraham why it's not right for the Magen Avraham. That's why Rikki didn't say it. Because that's so obvious. Took Rav Moshe like 2 pages to say why it's so obvious. Anyhow, it was just whatever. So he says, Rav Moshe says Pidyon Ben is very different. Just if you're curious, he says Pidyon Ben it's not a Gemara that you now do Pidyon Ben Shabbos. It's Rishonim. It's not brought in the Gemara. It's not Pasha that a Pidyon Ben is anything. There's no kinyanim. There's nothing wrong with giving money to a kohen. There's no kinyan going on. There's no changing of kedusha. It's called a pidyon haben, but there's no real pidyon. There's no kedusha on the ben. There's no changing over anything. He says nothing's really happening. Okay.
The coins.
So he says you're allowed to give coins. The Gemara, you're allowed to give the matnas kahuna to the kohen on Shabbos. There's nothing wrong. Be'etzem, there are things wrong. That's why you're not allowed to do it. He says, but it's not as bad as a real kinyan. Okay? It's not as bad as a real kinyan, and that's why.
What about even books?
No, so it says you should give kalim, you give money, you give them a cup, you give them a coins, you don't have to give them silver coins. Well, you give them kesef, you give them your silver coins. My father did once a picnic of that. He was in a foreign country, and the guy says, hey, I'm a coin, but they were doing a real pidyon event, and they said, no, I'm also. So they went up to the cabin, they took out a silver coins, they gave it to my father. Okay, whatever. They figured out that was the shir, and they gave him a silver coins. Okay. So anyhow, so now, So I'm saying to you, Rabbi Kiva says, you're not allowed to make a king that's going to be Chal on Shabbos, so then we're not doing Hafrashah, okay? That all sounded nice and good. Everything sounded wonderful. There's only one itty-bitty problem, okay? And that is, in Mishnayos of Demai, okay, there are 5 Mishnayos in a row that say that you should do Hafrashah on Friday to be Chal on Shabbos. Okay, 5 Mishnayos in a row that, in Perek Zayin, the first 5 Mishnayos tell you, this is what, it gives you all the details of how you do Hafrashah from Friday to be Chal on Shabbos. So here we are saying, no, you're not going to make a kinyan you're not going to make a thing that's going to happen on Shabbos. And it's 5 in a row that say it's put in the Rambam Shulchan. It's a real thing that you're not allowed to do this. 5 Mishnayos in a row telling you how you do on Friday to be Chal on Shabbos. Okay, so I don't really know how to explain what I'm saying. I'm not going to try to.
So we're out. So it's good though.
So Rabbi Kiva said that you're not going to make a be Chal on Shabbos. And he's brought this right that you're not allowed to make a Chal on Shabbos. And here comes one Mishnayos and saying you're allowed to do this thing. So now.
But I think that picking is okay, but Hafrashah is not okay.
Right, Hafrashah is not allowed.
And even Rashi says it's not Mistaba like Rabbi Kiva Eger, just so Rabbi Kiva Eger said it.
He says we need a riot. Okay, so the truth is, not only, something's funny here. We're missing something over here. There's obviously a difference between a Hafrashah and a kinyan. Okay, there's some kind of difference. And I can tell you a bunch of theories, but I don't want to tell you my theories because the Chazon Ish talks about it for like a page. Okay, he talks all about this din that the Mishnayos say that you're allowed to make Hafrashah from Friday to be Chal on Shabbos, and he surely is implying that he follows that din. He brings Rabbi Kiva a bunch of times in the middle of this discussion. Okay, but it's way deep into the sugyas and how to include it. I don't know. Not that I think he's not right. I just didn't get it. It was too complicated for me. Okay, too deep into the sugyas. Okay, so I don't know what he says, but it's not like he didn't know Rabbi Kiva was a shayla for this thing because he brings it a few times. Brings it Rabbi Kiva. If you want to look at it, it's in Demai, Perek, Tez, Ois Yud to Tezval. Okay,
Doesn't mean it's right.
No, that I didn't see it. He doesn't know anything about this. Okay? No, the Chazon Ish is coming from the other side. The Chazon Ish is coming from the Hafrashas true side. He says, what should you do if you have to mafresh for Shabbos? He talks about different eitzes. There are 3 eitzes and all kinds of things going on, and he brings them in the middle of this. Like it's as if floating in the middle of this thing. So again, I'm sure he talks about it. I'm sure he has something to say, but I just don't know what it is. Okay, so and all I know is in Shmir Shabbos Kechasa he brings some of these things. And he brings the Chazon Ish, and he says that you should do it. You could do the Hafrashah on Friday to become Shabbos. Okay? So I'm sure what the Chazon Ish said. He brings some of the Chazon Ishes. I don't think that he in Shmir Shabbos mentions Rabbi Kiva. I don't remember if he does or doesn't. But it does say you could do it. So the long and short of it is that in my confusion, all I know is that obviously there's some kind of a difference here. I'm missing something over here, and it is obviously allowed that you are allowed to do the Hafrashah from Friday to be Chal on Shabbos. Exactly why I can't tell you. It is interesting, in Shmir Shabbos he says you should not make the bracha on Friday, which is like Rosh Hashanah said. You should not make the bracha on Friday, you should make the bracha on Shabbos. That's it. Over there you should make, now up there, something happens on Shabbos. On Shabbos, the guy actually, puts some food on the side or has in mind which food is the truma. He said you should make the bracha on Shabbos, like Rosh Hashanah, but you do not make the bracha, like the deep from the Magen Avraham. You don't make the bracha when you say it, because it's not going to be chal at that point. So for one reason or another, again, maybe someone's going to see this is going to tell me I'm wrong, but it seemed to me that it was okay to do the Hafrashah on Friday for Shabbos. Like again, I apologize that I wish I could really explain this to you. But of course, if you did Rabbi Shechter's idea to say it for the past, we could solve that problem also. If you remember, David could get up in the morning and say, I'm making Hafrashah from now until the next time I say it, but I don't want any Hafrashah to be Chal on Shabbos. He could have said that. He could say, I don't want any Hafrashah to be Chal on Shabbos and Yom, and then come on Sunday, he'll say, and anything that I missed will go backwards. If you use the backwards wording, if you say, whatever I missed will be Chal also, then he would have covered himself. He wouldn't get into the Shabbos. But it seems like it's okay. I don't know why.